Greetings, shalom. Day. That's the continuation of the words down there. Trusting him a little more than yesterday. Didn't fit. That would be the goal for every believer. A little bit more would be very good. One more step in the right direction. One more step out of the lies, out of the sorcery, out of faithlessness, of which every believer needs to continue to grow in. Because it's either growing or dying. One of the two must happen. One of the two must be so. And some of the point and things that come to mind on this is to try to say what the condition really is with the oh, that thing came on again. Hold up. Well, I just let it go. I just never turn it off. Maybe I should. It's worthless. The purpose is to say that there is no hope for the world. There is no hope in unbelief. There is no help. There is no coming out of it. And it's getting worse and worse. Getting worse and worse. It's got to get worse and worse until it dies and blows up in the end. It's the worst at the end than it'll ever be at any time before in someone's life is at the end. And a believer's life must be the best it's ever been in his way at the end. Those are the two ways that everyone is growing into every single day, because that's the judgment that Adam shall be done. I just got a verse of the day. I might as well read it, see what it is right now. Isaiah 44:3. For I will pour water on him who is thirsty, and floods on the dry ground. I will pour my spirit on your descendants, and my blessing on your offspring. Well, that seemed very fitting. That's what the Father will do. That's what we have to believe in Isaiah 44:3, that he will do. The world won't believe in its heart. It can't believe. And it's a deception and a strong sorcery to get someone to think otherwise about the majority of all people, because the majority of all people don't believe. That's just the truth that always is, always has been, always will be in this age, which is rightly divided from the age and ages to come. In this age, that is the truth, that is the word, that it's many called, many, few chosen, few that actually believe. And of course, that sounds prideful and could be tempting and will be tempting at some point in a believer's life, and they have to overcome that also, because that image can be slandered and said that this is prideful and wicked of them, when there is no pride in Messiah being chosen. There is no pride in Messiah being born, not of his will, but of the Father's will. In spirit, receiving his spirit is to be born again from above. That's a given. That's not pride. That's not man creating his own way, receiving his own things, and because man said so, not of man's will or running. It's not of the one that runs or wills, but of the Creator who wills and runs in his people. It's him doing all things, even through the devil and through evil for judgment. He's still in control and power over all things. And he will hand someone over to their sins and lust and let the devil chew on them. And the devil does the direct evil, and the Father allows it. He allows it to be for a judgment. And if he restrains it, he restrains it. And he restrains a lot of evil every day. Otherwise, everyone would just kill someone, kill their neighbor, and everyone would be dead in no time at all. But as he unleashes Not that he's doing the evil, but he allows the devil to unleash the beast and allows man to be unleashed for who and what he really is with no restraint by the Creator, because the wicked are at restraint. They are not able to do everything that they want to do. Sometimes he will allow a little bit here and there for someone to do directly what they want to do. And then someone kills someone. And then someone robs someone. Who's to say exactly what he's doing at every moment, for every person, for every country, for every nation, for every moment, for every second of every day? His judgments are past finding out. And the devil would like to use that scripture to say that we can learn no judgments, that we can know absolutely nothing, which is not what that scripture means. But it does mean that all the things he are doing, we can't find out. It's too grand, it's too big, and yet there is a way to learn his judgments and not contradict that scripture, because learning his judgments and how he's working and judgments for us individually and on people, that is what a believer is supposed to learn. We read it directly to learn his judgments. We read it directly that his people hate his judgments and don't want anything to do with them. It's in his word through and through constantly and all the time, even not said directly, through the teaching, through the word. It's teaching that without saying it directly many times. It's teaching that same truth through the through whatever word we're reading, through whatever story, whatever parable, whatever example. It's teaching multiple things all at the same time. And that's what everyone has to find out for themselves, is the Father's will for themselves. They have to find out. We have to find out his will for us individually, and not have some man, some doctor, some sorcerer, some guru run our life and tell us the truth, because they won't. That isn't the way. That's the way of the devil and the way of this world and the way of death. Messiah says to his disciples, those that believe today, that that's what the nations and Gentiles do and seek, to rule it over them. They seek that. They want that, to rule it over them. This ruling is the wicked ruling. This is the controlling. This is the brutality, the wicked intention and heart. This is sorcery, deception, lies, stepping on someone's head in the mud, cracking their skull with their heart, is what this ruling is. Messiah says to his disciples, for you it shall not be so. For you it is not so. This cannot be for his people. It absolutely cannot. So if someone is constantly doing that, they are not of him, because this cannot be for his people. This is not what the Father leads his people to do, is the same sin that they always have done. He doesn't lead his people into more sin and to fill up in it, but is taking us out of the sin and doing the good instead of the evil, ruling, because there is a good way to rule. And Adam doesn't know about the good way to rule over his wife, and his wife doesn't know the good way to obey his husband. They will only see evil in it, because they never sought the truth for what that means in their heart towards the Father, to ask of him, which is worshiping him, because asking is part of true belief and worship, is to truly ask from him, which requires denial of self, which requires self actually acknowledging that self does not know. If that's the truth for any given word, that's what that is acknowledging and denying self and self's ability, and self's ability to understand that it literally has to fall like bread from heaven above on our head and in our mouth. And he says, here's bread, stuff your mouth, stop complaining. Because that's what we read the Israelites constantly did, no matter what they're given, to teach us, to teach those that are in Messiah, that's what the carnal man is. That's faithlessness. That's in constant fear, worries, doubt, constant wicked fear, needing to rightly divide from the true fear that's needed, which is a fear, and it's a fearful thing. The true fear, it is a real fear. But that old cowardly fear has got to go, because it's evil and it's never done anyone good. That's the only fear that a natural man knows that does not know the Creator, is the wicked, cowardly fear of control through control. It wants others to fear them. This is a wicked intention. This fear is evil. This is how someone gains control over a person or population or its customers or its, what do they call them? Patients. Yes, there is no actual patience in this patience. This is the patients that are succumb to believing their rulers lie. They go to them as if they can help them. They go to them in fear, wanting to hear something that they already want to hear. And when the doctor lies to them, they don't see it. And if they find out some of it's a lie, they rage. What are they going to do? Well, they'll do evil to the doc man instead of seeking the Creator and not cursing and doing evil to the enemy. Nevertheless, speaking truth is not doing evil to the enemy. Speaking truth is love, and speaking lies is murder. Truth always sounds like murder to the devil because it is the worst enemy in existence to the enemy is truth. Truth is the enemy of the enemy. Truth is the abomination to the abominable. Truth is the wicked thing to the wicked, because in a reversed upside down world, the kingdom of heaven is upside down to them. The Father and all his good things are upside down to the world that's upside down. And that can be seen naturally just by, I don't know, putting your head hanging over, let the blood flow, upside down over your bed or something. Now everything else is upside down from the perspective of the one that's upside down. It's not real. The problem is the person's upside down. They need to get upright. Then they'll see the kingdom. Then they'll see the Creator's things. Then they'll start seeing the truth. As long as they're upside down in faithlessness and unbelief, in wrath, as the devil has come down to all that are of the earth. Woe, woe, woe to all that are on the earth. The devil's wrath has come down to you, we read. That would be to everyone. But there is a way to come out of it. And it was even so for believers, and it's a battle now for believers to continually come out of it. It's upside down because it is upside down. How easy is it to claim something that isn't true and make a wild accusation with no discernment or judgment, with no actual knowledge and sight to see what is really true and happening in the heart, in spirit? It's easier than dropping a penny on the ground. It's easier than blinking the eyes to just say the words real quick. Someone better be sure those words are the truth and right, because someone will only go blinder and judged for that lie that they did. They'll become dumber and they will receive judgment back on their head for doing a lie and a false accusation. The same Creator also says to not falsely accuse anyone. That would be also the believer's job, is to not falsely accuse Hitler of doing something he didn't do in that moment. That's evil. Who else is there to not do this work to besides enemies? Because there's not very many believers in this world, and of course we're not supposed to do that to other believers, but it's going to be mostly unbelievers, enemies in spirit, that we have to do that to, or not do the evil to keep his word and not falsely accuse. What doctors do all the time is say something they have no clue of in their heart. They don't actually know, and they've fallen far away from the truth of acknowledging that they don't know. Somewhere they knew the Elohim at one time. And this scripture it does not mean whatever I thought it meant. I didn't know what it meant at all. And it's not as if this is the only angle, if you will, of that scripture, as if that's the only thing, because his word is so big and wide and tall. But one thing he's shown me on that scripture where we read in Romans, I think, although they knew Elohim, They did not worship him as Elohim. What does that mean? How could the wicked know him? Do they have the true knowledge and knowing which only comes through belief? How could they truly know him and not have his spirit? Because it's not speaking of that kind of knowing. It's speaking of something different. He's speaking of he's speaking of the impossibility that someone has no clue so that they can use an excuse. There is no excuse. That's the teaching. That's the truth of his word. There is no actual excuse, which is the truth in heaven. And then there's the excuses people make, two separate things. There's making it look like there's an excuse by someone making an excuse and looking real, making it look real. And then there's the truth in heaven that there is no actual excuse, meaning in the heart, not on the outside, but inside the heart, it's not actually working. It's not actually happening. It's not actually working for the person making an excuse. The Creator has made all things already, so that man is without excuse. Although they knew Elohim, they did not worship him as Elohim, but four-footed beasts and images and creeping things like that, like we read. They've fallen further away from him. They could see it. They're looking at it. And then once you get 20 years old, 25, you start getting deeper and deeper and falling away from what they knew at some point. And whatever innocence compared to what someone becomes, you can call that innocence in contrast to how much worse it gets. You could say it's innocent. And that's how that word's used there. It's not actually innocent because everyone's sinner. No sinner's innocent. They're guilty of sin. But comparing to what how far someone falls and becomes later in life, yeah, it's innocent compared to. And something can be said about that from being a kid, a young teenager. They're, of course, it's getting so bad that it's all happening at an earlier age. They're like more, even worse, even earlier, even stronger. Already late teens, someone's in heavy delusion and destruction and rebellion like none other. I mean, what else is it besides rebellion against all things? Rebel, rebel, rebel. And then the wave of the not my time, but I mean, who doesn't know something about it? The 60s, 70s, the rebellion ramping up, pumping it into society. And then that becomes normal. And then the next wave comes, and then that becomes normal, and the judgments keep coming. And it's going to keep getting worse and worse. That's the only thing and direction the world can get worse into. And his people must be getting better and better right in the middle of it, right in the middle of the chaos and the flood, right in the middle of watching everyone get flooded, dead by his judgments. Everyone's on edge. Everyone's filled up with wrath. Their teeth are set on edge. Their face shows their destruction and misery every day. They lie, cheat, steal, kill, destroy all the time. They deceive others. They never can tell the truth, and then they wonder why they're destroyed. You see faces every day. Every time I go out and drive and do some carnal work, at least, not every literal day, but that's the point, is that that's what I'm seeing. That's what I see. I could see the spirit of man is destroyed and filled up with wrath. I could see that there is no hope in people, and the things that they call hope are false and fraudulent, and they're things that like cling on to something that could just be washed away because it's not real. One moment it's there, and the next it's utterly gone, and someone goes on to the next thing to hope and trust in. And maybe it's a doctor, maybe it's this, maybe it's a brand new car, whatever it could be, whatever the sin might be coming through. The object doesn't matter so much except why the heart is doing what it's doing. Anything, just about anything, could become a sin because of what someone is doing with it. Something can become a sin because of the intentions of the heart, which is everything, the thoughts and intentions of the heart. Deception is murder. Deception is evil. Doctors are not truth tellers. If they tell one lie a day, they're doing great evil, and they're not telling one lie a day, not just one. But if they were only to tell one lie a work day, That is great evil. That is hating your neighbor. That is murdering them. That is making sure that nothing good happens to them. That is making sure that they stay, at the very least, in the spiritual destruction that they are already in. And the doctor wants others to be in the same destruction that it is in. That's why it became a doctor, to hide all its sins, to be seen as wise, powerful, and amazing, to be trustworthy, to be worshipped, obeyed, and listened to, and trusted. This is the kind of carnal control that Messiah says cannot be of his disciples. They want to lord it over them. They want to rule, that word, to be a master over them. That's the ruling that Messiah says his people cannot do that from the heart, because this is a work from the heart, and it can be seen whether it's either being done or it's not done. Sounding like it's being done is not doing it. It has to be discerned whether someone is doing that work from the heart. The devil only talks about the image. He never talks about the intentions of the heart, because that's what he's hiding every day, is the actual thing that is sin to the Creator. The sins of the heart, it can never speak truth about or talk about, because there is no truth in the devil. None. There is no truth in man. The devil will put you in prison for 10 days. The devil will do such and such. And Messiah says to have patience and overcome it, to keep going and trust anyways. That's what we're supposed to do. What, the devil? So when something like that happens, who was it that did those things to Messiah? The devil captured Messiah and did all that evil to him. And finally, the beast killed Messiah, literally killed him, as it's given for the sheep to be sent out to the slaughter spiritually every day. And for Messiah, his end, that was fulfilled utterly, to be literally killed. This is the overcoming that the beast has against the saints. The beast overcomes them. That's how the beast overcame Messiah. This doesn't sound good. The world can't teach this truth because it sounds horrible. It sounds horribly evil, because the things a believer has to go through are literally insane. But they're not insane, but it's insane from our perspective, because it's incredibly difficult. How can someone love the Creator that has this will and plan for his people to constantly be hated, murdered, to see the things that they see, and needing to bear all the real sins that people are doing from the heart that are seen all the time, every day? How could the Creator love his people? It sure doesn't look like it. It definitely creates the image of not loving, of hating, if anything. It sure creates the image of the Father hating Messiah, because why would he allow all those things to be? Why all the attacks, the lies, the Pharisee, the religion, everyone, and then the intention to murder him, even literally? Is the murder in the heart? That's already murder to Messiah. That's already a violence, stabbing him over and over and killing him in this way, and yet needing to overcome all that killing. And then finally, the beast did overcome his flesh and kill him in the flesh, which is the Father's will, for the flesh to be finally destroyed. One last, not act, but true work of good. A strong, strong test, the biggest test in the end, is will he do evil to those that are literally killing him and going to kill him? Will he do evil in his heart? What a monstrous, big, huge test at the end. Sure doesn't look like the Father loves his people when you look at it and see it for what it is. It doesn't look like it. That's a struggle to overcome. That's a struggle to overcome every day. And the more sight and knowledge a believer is given, the more pain, the more suffering, the more that knowledge creates pain, like we read. But the carnal man has more knowledge of just getting into more sin, and that sin causes him more death within. Then he says the Father's word out of that carnality, the letter that kills, that all his knowledge is causing him great pain, and someone should pity that now, when it has nothing to do with the truth and the true knowledge and the true suffering that is the tribulation of all believers and the saints, like we read. In this world you will have tribulation. That's what it's supposed to be like, which is what a hard thing to accept. How can someone love that truth? Needing to find a way to love that truth, which doesn't mean loving the evil and loving that that's happening, but loving that truth. And loving that truth would be to do his will and to do good to others that do evil to us, which sums it up in one word, which is the hardest, most impossible thing to do, is do good when someone puts a test on you and does evil to you. The enemy wants you to do evil back to them. I've seen it. I've seen the experience and the reality and proof of that. It wants to test you. It wants to wickedly, carnally, worthless test you. Why do you test me? Messiah said to their face. He's not talking about good testing. He's talking about their wicked testing, the testing that a carnal man thinks that he's God Almighty, testing someone, just testing you. No, they're not. They're wanting to do evil to you, and then they try to pass that evil and cover themselves by saying it's a test, as if they're the creator of the heavens and earth, putting the test on everyone. No, that would be the creator alone that does that. That's his job and his work, to test everyone and put them to the test. And the wicked will fail that test, and a test isn't coming in their life at some point that's going to utterly flood them. And that's the testing that he saves his people from getting flooded by that massive test. It comes on everyone, every generation. There's a test coming on all people that's going to utterly flood them if they're not in belief. If they're not in Noah's ark, they're going to be flooded by it. They're going to be destroyed by it utterly. They're going to perish through it. Their hope is going to go into more negative. Already negative 1,000, it's going to go to negative 10,000. That's the woe, woe, woe on all the earth and testing that he does. And he tests his people to see if they keep his commandments or not. How does the Father test his people today and yesterday? By having evil come on us. That's the only way that a pressure can be put on to see, because there is nothing else that proves anything without a test. Is the evil creating a pressure to see what someone does? Do they do what they say, or do they not do what they say and are liars and deceiving themselves, let alone others? When a test comes, that's what it tests them, to see if they keep his law, to see if they keep his Sabbath, of which man cannot know what that means, because the carnal man, we know, we can learn what the carnal man thinks the Sabbath is, and it's in the letter of his word what man thinks that is. It's never been that. That's what the carnal man thinks first, though. That's what he has to learn. He has to learn what it's not, and then learn what it really is, to rest in him, the true Sabbath. The true Sabbath is not doing our own works from the heart, is not doing our own works at all times. That's the perfect thing, is to never do our own works, but his works working in us, and then those works work things. And then someone can claim we're doing our own works because it looks like it. Who can see the difference between someone resting from their works and their works? Their labors do follow them, like we read in Revelation, because they rested from their works. Blessed are the dead who die from now on in the Master, who rest from their labors and their works do follow them, or rest from their works and their labors do follow them. That means they're still working. Messiah said he's working, that the Father and him have been working all this time. Pharisees don't know what Sabbath is. They have no clue. They're not even in the same realm of what Messiah is thinking and what he knows and has received from above. They are literally incapable of thinking the thoughts of what Messiah is speaking about, which is they have nothing to do with the truth and have no clue what it means. That's the truth that they cannot acknowledge. They see what looks like work, healing, which is a work from above, a good work. Anything good is always good to do. There's no restriction or law against good. You can do 5 billion pounds of good one day, or a billion or 100. There's no law against good, like we read. The law is for the unrighteous. The law is for sinners. It's a restraint. by which man tries to make himself righteous through the working of self, the flesh, of the law. And he will never have the truth, but he will have some kind of worthless carnal understanding of the letter of the law, or the law man makes up in his own mind. And then when he purposely follows it, he thinks he makes himself righteous by following the law he created and never doing the working of the law in the heart, never doing the law in spirit, the law of spirit. Like we also read the spirit of the law, which is the spirit of the Father and Messiah in us, working in us the Father's works, which is the spiritual law, all one. Every word and every law is from him, from above, is of spirit, and is one in spirit. And then the law of man and man's works of the flesh is the working of the law. That's how that's understood. When we read that, he's talking about man's own works is the working of the law. That's what that is right there. Is man, it's not the creator's law. It just looks like it. It just man using some of it to make it look like it, that he's righteous and of law keeping. And it doesn't know what Sabbath is, and Messiah knows that they don't know, and he speaks the truth to them anyways, because that's what doing the Father's work is. It speaks to a dead tree and a dead stump anyways, because that's loving neighbor as self, because that's doing to others as you would want them to do to you. Does someone want others to lie to them? Sure, they can say they want others to lie to them. They're liars the moment they say it, because it can be proven whether someone wants others to lie to them. How is it proven? One time in life, in one scenario in someone's life. If someone fills up with wrath and anger, one time, because someone lied to them and they found out that they lied to them, and they get angry, that work in that moment right there proves that they're a liar, that they do not want others to lie to them. They get angry and hate when others lie to them when they find out. That work proves for all time that those words, yeah, I want others to lie to me. Yeah, I want that. Thinking they can escape through this, thinking they can escape the judgment and all law from above by saying, yeah, I want that to me, because that's escaping answering the question, isn't it? That's why someone would say something like that, but they can't actually escape because they ran into a trap that's going to prove them to be an utter fool and a liar, because they're going to prove with their own works from the heart that they're a liar by hating a lie when they find out it's a lie, which proves that they are a liar for saying, I want someone to lie to me. That's what proved it. It's over. It's done. Forget those words. They're trash now because of what someone did with them, because it's a lie. Now nothing more needs to be heard from that person. They're a liar. It's done. It's over. It's a bad tree. It's bad fruit. It's corrupt. And it won't be able to acknowledge any of these words or truth for these situations, because the devil has no truth in him. Neither do all the children of the devil, who become more in the image of the beast every day instead of the Father's spiritual image that Messiah became, and of which we need to become in his image, growing in his image, with the goal and purpose of all mankind being in the Father's image someday, because he declares the end from the beginning. He created man in his image. In his image, he created them. Who's calling the Father a liar? The whole world says that this will never happen. How do they hide that? By making it look like they believe it, by saying with the mouth, God made everyone in his image. They don't believe it because they're not talking about the truth. They don't know what that means. They're lying when they say they believe that. They do not believe that at all. What proves they don't believe that? A situation in life where truth is given and they fill up with wrath and prove they don't believe it. That's what proves it. Not speaking in a delusion in some Sunday behind a pulpit with no test on them. That doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove they believe anything or do anything. That proves nothing. A real test in life and what someone does with their heart and how they react with their heart is what proves whether they believe those words or not. They don't believe that all mankind will be in his image, do they? And yet they claim that everyone's created in his image. What a great contradiction. They don't believe what it really means that all mankind will be in his image. What is that? Good. That is a very good thing. That is the opposite of the image of the beast. That is all man being saved. That is all man becoming in his image, what man really needs to become. That's declared from the beginning. That is not happening in one day. Therefore, it puts a test on everyone that claims to believe, because it requires faith, suffering, patience, tribulation to believe this, because it's not fulfilled yet for everyone. It doesn't look like it's going to be fulfilled. That's quite the test to see if someone believes this. You will look bad for believing it, which causes a pressure, which his word causes a pressure to be ashamed of. In every word, it's working like this. The actual truth causes a pressure. It's required to look like a fool and look shameful in front of all the world, because it looks foolish, fraudulent, unreal, stupid to the carnal mind. Because what does that look like? All will be saved. It looks stupid. All will be made in his image. All have been created in his image, because he speaks something into existence before it even is. And it's prophecy working every day. It's not working like they say it works. It's not fulfilled fully the way they say. So they lie when they say that everyone's created. No, not everyone is already today created in his image. Not even every believer until their end. It's not finished until their end. It's being created in his image and will be at their end. And the rest of the world had nothing to do with it. They are not being created in his image right now at all, because sinning is not the Father's image. Lying, cheating, stealing, killing, raping, committing adultery is not in the Creator's image. Adam and Eve sinning is not in the Creator's image. If that lie is believed, all corruption can only follow. If someone holds on to that one lie that Adam and Eve are already perfectly in his image, that very day, all sin and wickedness will follow. There is no choice, there's no path, there's no availability or possibility for a single truth to be in that person's heart, as long as that lie is continually fully believed in their heart, that Adam and Eve is already. Every time a person says that God has created and they are speaking out of it already being true, that's what they're saying. They can't hide that. They say it all the time. They speak out of it already being so and true. He already created, past tense. It's already true. You are a creature in his image, he says, because that sounds good. That sounds like love. It creates the image of love. It makes it look like that false prophet is wise and good and loves everyone. He will get worship and love by the people for speaking the lie, the wicked abomination that he speaks. Every time someone says that like that, that's a fraud. That's a lying false prophet that does not know Jehovah at all and has never heard from him, like we read in Jeremiah. They have never heard from him. And what he speaks presumptuously of his own wicked heart and his own thoughts. He doesn't speak the Father's word and prophecy at any time, because he already believes he's perfect in God's image. He already believes the devil's doctrine, which is the devil's doctrine spoken from the beginning. You shall be as gods, confusing being in his image with being in his image. It pretends to be the truth. That's who the devil is. It takes the word, puts a false meaning on it, the carnal thing, the wicked thing, and acts as if that is the truth. It's not. And it will be believed as if it's the truth. That's what the enemy does. That's his work. It means something completely different to be in his image. That's man becoming a God in his own mind, an Elohim in his own mind, through all pride and evil. That's the devil saying, you shall actually be the creator in all pride in your heart, in all rebellion. What you say stands because you say it. You are become as Elohim. You shall be like Elohim. It's a lie. It looks like it's the truth. It looks like that would be to be in his image, and it has nothing to do with it. Nothing at all, only the same image. The Pharisees claim that Messiah is claiming to be the creator and Elohim himself. They're talking about their own heart. They are gods in their own heart and mind, following that old doctrine from the beginning that every soul must believe that does not know the creator, and in fact already does, because he doesn't lie about anyone. Messiah is actually in the Father's image, having nothing to do with pride, doing the Father's will, and it looks like something. And what it looks like, the devil takes and claims that Messiah is what he is. It condemns its own soul for claiming that good is evil and evil is good. The enemy always traps itself when it does evil to the good, to the light. Always. It instantly is a hypocrite, condemning its own self for what it accuses. It is the God. It wants worship. It blesses and gives and punishes and revenges and gives gifts and determines who gets this and who does that. It thinks it's God and that it can do all these things. The doctor is God-man that can do all things. He takes all praise when it looks like the image lines up with his words, but when it doesn't, he hides and it's all covered up and brushed under a rug every single time. And that one time that happens is not counted for anything by anyone. And it's happening over and over again and not just one time. They're lying and they're wrong all the time about many things for an image. They're blatantly wrong all the time and no one cares. It's brushed under the rug. The doc man only rises into the spotlight when it's for his image, when it looks like he's right, when it looks like he helped someone and healed someone with his sorcery and with his pill. The creator will give someone the delusion to believe it because they want to believe the lie. They will believe the lie and they will not be able to believe otherwise, meaning they have to continue to believe that pill is actually healing them itself through the power of a worthless man, through the power of a sorcery and a sorcerer practicing his lies and deceit. They will not be able to, repeating, not be able to believe anything otherwise, ever. It will only believe the lie deeper tomorrow than it ever did before. That's the way of death. That's the way of faithlessness. The world has a different definition of faith to make itself faithful and righteous. That's the only way it can make itself faithful, is to twist, lie, kill, steal, and destroy every truth and change the truth into the lie, like we read. It changes the truth into a lie and then claims the lie is the truth so that it can make itself look like the truth when it's actually the lie, and everyone will believe the image of the beast. The whole world will be behind them. The whole world will support a carnal man and a false prophet. Nobody will support a believer. Nobody will believe the truth that isn't of the Father. No one can hear his language because they believe their own lies also, and they can't see the truth because what they believe and think they see is a literal delusion. And the power they think something has is actually the Creator doing all things that they do not believe and cannot believe. He will make it look real to someone on purpose because that's what someone wants. He's not doing evil. He's giving someone what they want. They want to believe in some vain pill and some sorcerer, some magician, some doctor. Then they will believe it. He will make sure it looks real in their own mind. That specific delusion will work to delude them even further. That's his judgment. That's how it's working. That's how he's judging. That's looking at it from like a top-down view of just in general how he's working it. And then all the details, who knows all the details, but that's his judgment. That's how he's working it for everyone. A man becomes what he believes, and someone is as they believe. Let it be done to you as you believe, Messiah said, as someone shared to me that has stuck out a lot lately to me. As you believe, so let it be done to you. Walk away as you believe. So as you believe, let it be done to you. What if you believe a lie? Let it be done to you. It works both ways. As someone believes in their heart, let it be done to them. It will be done to them, whether for good or whether for evil. He does both things. He does not do one thing only. He doesn't do what man calls good only. He brings on evil on people and sends evil people's way because that's what they want. And he's punishing them for wanting their own things, which is rebellion in their heart against him, which is not believing in him, which is murdering him, which is hating him. All the differences in the heart, and maybe a way is made for someone and maybe someone else it's not. Who knows how he's judging someone? If a little mercy is shown to the wicked and they find something that helps them in the flesh, will they give credit for that way allowed to even think those thoughts for that? No, they will take credit themselves. That's what a doctor does when it looks like what he's saying is true, when it looks like the sorcery is working. It looks like what he's saying is real and can be true and is actually right. It's strong. It looks very real. Who actually knows whether those words, whether what someone is saying is actually true, working like that, and real? He goes and rises in the spotlight when it looks like in his image's favor. When it's not in his favor, he runs and hides and covers it all up and says something like, well, it just doesn't work for you. It's not my fault. I take credit for the pill when it looks like it's working, but I hide and run and blame the pill, the God I created, when it's not working, in quotation marks, not working, because if anyone can see what I'm speaking about, none of this is real, none of it. And it takes a lot of understanding and faith, of which I need a lot more on these things to even remotely be in agreement with the truth, because it doesn't look like it, because it looks like the lie is true in this world. There's not a single atom, there's not a single thing in creation that exists for no reason apart from him. He's in control of all of it. He's in creation and all of it and doing all things, whether for good or evil. And someone will not be able to see right away because they don't believe the Creator does any evil. He doesn't bring any bad on it. He doesn't bring evil and calamity on people. No, he doesn't do that. Do they want 1,000 scriptures that says he does? They must not know our Creator. Yes, our Creator is very wicked to the wicked. We know what they think of the Creator and his people and Messiah. We know what they believe of them, that they never believed in God, that they're frauds and have never believed a day in their life in the actual true Creator, that they've believed in the image they created, their false golden calf God, whom they want all to worship, which is worship going back to the Creator of the God. Worshipping the image that man created is the second image. Getting worship back to the first, that is the goal. The second image demands, it commands out of all brutality for all that power and image worship coming its way to go back to the first image, because that's man. Man is the first image of the beast who creates whatever God. There's many. It could be a pill, it could be a golden calf, could be Trinity God. It's anything and everything that man creates. When he's exposed, he blames all his sin onto the God he created. But when he looks like he's right, he takes credit for creating the God and takes all credit that it's actually him through that thing going back to him. When he looks like he's wrong and his image is being exposed, he blames it on the God he created and takes no responsibility. You can't do both. You can't actually do both. Sorcerers and doctors and liars and thieves and robbers, you can't do both. You're only doing one thing all the time. It's either good or evil. You're not doing good and evil both. You can't do both. It's a spiritual contradiction and impossibility to be lukewarm. That is the delusion. That is someone in delusion if they think the lukewarm is possible. It's not actually possible. That's why it's a delusion. You can't take credit whenever you want and then blame it on the thing you take credit for 5 minutes ago. Which one is it? All the time, because it's not both. It's sin all the time. That's what it is. It's a delusion. It's not real. It's just taking advantage of something so that it gets worship, so that it has fear in people. Because if someone fears someone, their knees buckle spiritually and they're controlled easily by the person. People love the wicked spiritual control. Of course, that could unleash into literal control in the army and brutality. Yeah, that's the same thing that has just grown, if anything, just far worse. That doesn't matter. What it is in the heart is what everybody seeks and wants. It wants to control others. It wants to do the spiritual wicked control. How do you do that to someone? You got to break them down in self's mind below your own level. They got to fear more than you do, but actually it's the one that does this work and controls someone that fears even more than their slave. It's not possible any other way. They need to make it look like they're powerful by dumping their fear onto someone else to make them look like they're strong and fearless. They are in greater fear than their slave. They are in greater fear than the millions they deceive. Because they're deceiving millions, their fear has risen to another level. And that has to be given from above to see how this is working and how it's true. It's way worse for the one that does more sin. They're in way more fear. That's why they're doing what they're doing, because they're in incredible fear. They want to dump their fear on anyone and everything. The more they are able to dump it on, the more fear and sin that person is actually in and doing themselves. The more they make themselves rise and look good in this world, the more closer to their destruction they are in reality. The more destruction and anxiety and misery they're really in, the more they need to cover and hide that misery that a believer cannot be hiding, because truth doesn't hide things. If it's sorrowful one day, it's sorrowful. If it's joyful one day, it's joyful. It doesn't hide. The wicked are always hiding because they're always doing sin with intention and on purpose. Anywhere there is real sin in the heart, someone must and already is hiding, because that is the judgment. Man can't break the Father's word. He's already hiding, like Adam and Eve, for sinning. If it's a sin in the heart, there is a hiding already. People put their fear onto someone else. Of course, there is a good way possible now that the world doesn't know of and does not believe and cannot believe that someone would want that for anyone, because it never wanted that for anyone itself. It cannot believe anyone is doing what it never did. That's impossible to God, man, to pride. It doesn't want to believe anyone in the whole world wants truth for others, because that's how it hides its sins. It doesn't want to believe that there are any true believers in this world, because that would expose that it's not a believer. It's only thinking for self. It's only ever working for self, selfishly, in all selfishness. It does that because of self, not someone else, but because of self first. Then it can look like it helps someone else after it makes sure it helped itself first. If that thing never comes to self, it will not even try to look like it's helping someone else. It can only do that if it looks good in people's eyes itself. That's why it helps others. That's why it gives to charities. That's why it gives in the middle of a large crowd, so that it can be seen that itself is righteous to hide and cover its naked body with fig leaf coverings, so that no one in their heart and mind believes that that's a sinner, because they're hiding from their sin. Everything that a man does is for the intention of self and hiding its sins. If there's a way for man to cover his sins, he lusts after it. It goes into his mind and he goes, man, I gotta do this because it's gonna hide his sins. He will lie to himself and give the devil definition for why he's doing what he's doing. He will believe his own lie, that he's doing what he's about to do for that false lying reason, and he will go blinder the moment he does it. He will believe that lie stronger tomorrow than yesterday, although at some point he knew it was a lie and he ignored it. And the Father gave someone what they want and they went more blind. That's how it's working. No one's going to love anyone for speaking that truth. It's a sacrifice to do good. It's a sacrifice to speak truth. Sacrificing self to be murdered, to be slaughtered for the truth. That's the only way that anyone can do the Father's works, is to sacrifice self as Messiah did. That is the only way to actually do good. It's required. First a little bit, then a little more, and then it grows. The test will get bigger, the sacrifice will be. He knows how to do all that. Someone is doing it, even if it's very small. And if it's medium, then someone is doing it according to the ability given to them from above. He doesn't put too much on someone that they cannot actually handle. Even that takes great understanding to know what that is, because it's too easy to make a false accusation on the Father and say that this false thing that the Father never does, and instantly calling him a liar, which every believer has done, and I've done, because in confusion, in not seeing, in some kind of sin, in some kind of anger that's not working for good, this is a tribulation to overcome, because it looks like that, it feels like that, it seems like that. So, and yet the Father never breaks his word. He never sins. He has no darkness in him. He has never done that a single time to anyone. But for the world needs to know, and it won't, but in truth, speak like this, because the world needs to know. Because there is no advantage or gain to speak truth to the world for any believer. There is no carnal worldly gain, only killing, suffering, and to be murdered as a sheep out amongst wolves, to get slaughtered because we believe the Creator will keep us alive. Requires great faith to do his works, because you're going to get slaughtered for it. Messiah got slaughtered every day for it, and yet the Father kept him alive. And I'm not speaking about the flesh now, but eventually they did overcome his flesh and literally kill him. It looks very strongly that the enemy had victory over Messiah. How is a believer going to sleep at night knowing that that's the Father's will and purpose, and that's what has to happen to them? That it looks like constantly to the world that a believer is a rotten, wretched, miserable sinner just like the rest of the world. Well, and they are, and yet they're not, because they believe and have his Spirit, because they are doing the Creator's works according to whatever has been given to them, and need to grow further until they're perfected. And yet they're not called sinners in his sight, even though a believer acknowledges it's a sinner, but they're covered. They're covered with his covering and not the self-righteous covering. We get the real covering by acknowledging the nakedness that we are, because clothes is not what someone is. They can have 20 pounds of clothes on, and that's not what someone is. They're still naked. They came into the world that way, and they will surely leave it. That's a hard truth. There is no truth that I know of that isn't hard so far, and I know there won't be. Then I'd be calling the Father a liar to say there's an easy truth. There is no easy truth that I've learned or found. All of it's difficult. And if it doesn't seem like it, here's why. Because more needs to be given about it. It will be. It will be. It just, that's how he works. He doesn't put on too much for someone that can't handle it. They won't be able to comprehend or think the thoughts that bring on the tribulation for how hard that truth is until the proper time. It'll be just a little bit, and it won't seem like a lot, because it's not. But then that truth and seed has to grow. It was an abomination all this time, and a believer needs to know it. It was an abomination to us, and every believer has to know it. They were never for the truth before belief. They never did the truth before belief. And there's a lot to burn out still further yet for every believer. There's still a lot of sin to burn out until Adam acknowledges he's perfectly naked according to the 100% perfect truth, because truth is not 99%, but that's the direction we have to be headed in. That's his grace, is that we're not perfect, and yet we have to be in his grace, in his way, towards that goal of the actual truth, because truth is no less than 100%. Adam has to acknowledge he's naked. What does that look like in the end? Something that we can't comprehend right now for every believer. Can't comprehend what that looks like because his people are under his grace. It would be too much to bear. It would be too much. It would be too much for the perfect truth to be fully acknowledged and done all at once, right now, today, for someone that's not overcome and isn't at their end yet. But now, because Adam does 5%, he's doing the Father's work, but he's acknowledging 5% of his nakedness according to the ability that he's able to handle and see at the present time. And the Father doesn't condemn the believer, Adam becoming the new man, for not being 100%. The enemy doesn't believe this. It's going to try to find something on you and say you're wicked and condemn you because of some sin you did 10 years ago. That's what it will do to you. That's what a believer should expect that the enemy can only do. And we have to pay no mind, as if they almost don't even exist, because they don't. They're not even born yet. What we're witnessing and seeing is something that is only brought out so that it can be destroyed forever. It's worthless, it's evil, it's garbage. And the Father hates it, and he's digging a grave for that old man, for every believer right now. And he will dig the grave for every person in the world that ever lived in due time, because the Father cannot have sin. It all exists to learn all these things, to learn who he is, to learn what the truth is. The value and meaning of everything in life is for that purpose, to learn it, to see what life is, to see what death is, to know the Creator, to know what it's like without him, to know what it's like with him, to learn and know all these things that don't matter to anyone in the world. It just matters what some carnal king is doing in some carnal kingdom about some worthless thing. What some cop is chasing down some bad guy, or some guy making a shot for basketball. Those are the worldly carnal kingdoms at work that matter to people. But it's not doing anything for them in reality. But it lies to itself and wants to believe that it can do something for them. That's a delusion. Somewhere deep inside it knew it could do nothing for it, but it kept falling, further and further. This is seeing that all are Adam and Eve. We read it because that's our story. That's everyone's story. This is what happened to our life from a child onward, is in his word. In Adam and Eve, it's happening and will happen to all, and has happened to all. Pretty powerful that no one has escaped the Creator's word. Everyone is Adam and Eve, and everything happened the same way to them as Adam and Eve. No different. It's why we read it. Wasn't for just a few people long ago, or just for a few now. It is speaking about everyone. It is for everyone, even though most don't believe now, but it's still about them. It's still speaking the truth about them. It's still for them in this way. How will someone come out of the lie? They can't. That's the point. They won't. Don't expect it. If they don't believe and trust in the Creator, we can't expect it. They won't. We shouldn't see it. We shouldn't expect it. It's not happening. They won't come out of it. They'll be at enmity against the truth. They don't believe it. They have nothing to do with each other, the light and darkness. What fellowship is there? There is no agreement with Baal, with the devil, with false gods, like we read. There is no agreement with the grave. What does life have to do with death? What does living in Messiah have to do with dying in Adam? All die. In Messiah, those that don't believe have this life right now. In Messiah, all will be made alive. All die, but not all in Messiah will be made alive. He's saying what will happen. He's speaking the truth of the Father's plan. It's not some opinion. No, it's not all fulfilled right now, and it's not supposed to be. It's not part of the Father's plan. Otherwise, all other things could not be the way they need to be if everyone believed in this world all at once. There would be no evil. There would be no testing. There would be no other truth. All the other truths that are through the evil wouldn't exist if everyone was a believer all at once. He knows what he's doing. It's part of the plan that the evil exists and that the world is in death. getting worse every generation. That is part of the plan for a greater good that man talks about and has no clue what means, because he doesn't believe the truth. He doesn't believe there is any good or greater good. He says evil is necessary to justify his evil. Someone needs to discern the difference for why someone says the words they say. They say it to justify the evil they love to do and continue to do. That's completely 180 from the truth, to speak it out of the truth because it's true, out of a good intention. Nothing to do with each other, even though they're the same words. That's who the devil is. He brings the same words. He knows the Father's word for corruption. He knows how to tempt someone and deceive them, because it takes nothing to do that. Anyone can go and deceive their neighbor right now and lie to them and create some kind of false story and narrative and deceive them, and then think they're wise for doing so. They are not wise for deceiving someone. They are wicked and fools for deceiving someone. Only a fool deceives someone on purpose. That's the work of a fool, not wise, not a wise man. Messiah is wise. He's not a fool, because he didn't go out and deceive others. He spoke truth, as his people need to speak the truth, no matter what happens to them. The enemy will try to stop the truth, try to destroy it by destroying the person also, and destroying something about the person's image, whatever they think they need to do. And the Father has to protect his people. That's what we're supposed to believe, is that he will. And at times it will look like the enemy's winning and defeating. But a believer cannot give up belief and hope, because we do become what we believe. That applies all the time, every single day. That's a pretty big word right there. That applies every day for everything, all the time, every second, about every situation, about becoming what we believe. What does someone really believe in their heart? Because they already are what they believe. But now the more a believer learns and believes, we have to grow out of those old man clothes. It became that evil. It became all that, and still is to whatever degree. And the Father does not condemn believers for still being that, to whatever degree they are. And yet we cannot make an excuse to justify the evil and sin at the same time. What a perfect way. What a narrow way. One step to the left or right, it's wrong, it's already evil, and it's a sin. It's got to be perfectly through his will, working perfectly right down the narrow path, not doing to the left or right, walking in a straight line. Does carnal man think he thinks he knows what that means? He thinks he knows what the Father's word means. He thinks he knows already everything, because the devil said, "You shall be as God. You shall be as Elohim," through all pride, through all wickedness. But in reality, the image of the beast is what man is, becoming that more every day, and not in the Father's image, but only the image of being in his image, which is to look good and shine on the outside, which is what a man lusts for, which is what he lives for, is to be praised and worshiped by men, which is the sin of the devil, which is all corruption and sin. It's connected to that. Someone doesn't get a $90,000 car and then says, "I didn't do it because I want to show off." When they say that, they're speaking exactly the opposite of what they're saying. They're speaking the sin and guilt of their heart and trying to hide it by just saying the words that they're not doing that. They are doing that. That's why they're saying they're not doing that. And it's incredibly rare for someone to be saying words and those words end up being true. They said it because it's true, and not for the justifier. The hiding and covering of sins is incredibly rare. No one will believe that person when they do speak the truth. No one in and of the world will believe that person, because they have never seen or done that good work in their life. They don't know of it. They will only project what they know and have done onto someone that's speaking truth, and claim that you are doing automatically whatever they do, and condemn you, because Messiah was handed over to the wicked, to be condemned by the wicked. Did they forget that they can read that in the church world? He was condemned by the wicked. What do they think that the wicked are doing to this day to believers? Do they think they're doing something different to them? That they're not being condemned as wicked? And a condemnation from the heart is a work of the devil. It's an evil heart condemnation. Messiah condemns no man. How does he not condemn the Pharisees of whom he spoke truth to and spoke out their evil? How does he not condemn them? Doesn't it look like he's condemning them? Well, the image was never the truth. That doesn't mean anything by itself. But the world, the only thing it can do is condemn. But there is a way to not condemn someone and do the works of the Father that Messiah did, to speak the truth and not out of condemnation. But it will look like it. Therefore, it will be pinned on them. And so Messiah bears other people's sins. What they claim he's doing, they are doing. And he has to take those sins on and the weight of that and carry it. A wicked man carries no burden, carries no sin, and carrying some team to a basketball trophy is wicked, has nothing to do with carrying a burden of other people's sins. It has nothing to do with his word at all. Nothing, zero. There is no fellowship with light and darkness and the kingdoms of this world with the kingdom of heaven. None, nothing. They're all liars, every one of them, that quotes his word while talking about some gain, while talking about some business. Nothing to do. We can read about the letter of the word, of what people think that word means in his word, the carnal side of it. We can read all day long what people think that means. We can read what they did, and they believe that what they did is his word, and it never was. His word is spirit. It's invisible to the carnal mind. It exists, and it's only available to those who seek it and receive it. The rest of the world will not see it. They will think that the truth means some kind of lie, and that the lie means some kind of truth. They will take that word for some kind of carnal thing about carnal kingdoms. Their heart only does carnality in unbelief, because there is no other way. That's all that man can be apart from the Creator, is a carnal man, beastly, natural, brute beast, like we read in Jude, only existing to be caught, trapped, and destroyed by the Almighty in a cage, like an animal. Because man is an animal. He's a dog. He's a sorcerer. Why do we read that? Well, there's two things, the spiritual and there's two sides to the sword. One side is the good, the heavenly, the spiritual, for what it always meant and means to the Father that needs to be given. The other side is what man already thinks that means, of his own works and his own understanding. He calls someone a dog or sorcerer out of all wickedness and evil, like the Pharisees did to all the Gentile nations. That's why we have this word. It is what all man is the Jerusalem, the natural Jerusalem, wicked. Jerusalem is Sodom and Gomorrah in the heart. Jerusalem is spiritually Sodom and Egypt. That's why we read that in Revelation, because it never was anything different in the heart than anybody else. It is the same wickedness that it condemns. It calls the Gentile nations dogs and sorcerers out of wicked condemnation, and doesn't know what that means or is or how it works at all. That's the side of the sword that it is. It doesn't know the other side of the word. It doesn't know the heavenly, the spiritual meaning, and it does not live it. It calls someone a dog and sorcerer out of a wicked condemnation, hateful, murderous heart with no clue what it really means. Now someone is going to say what? That the Creator is evil because he, through his word, calls man dogs and sorcerers. He's not doing evil. That has to be learned, what that means and how to speak that in truth and know what it means and live those words. That has to be given. How easy is it for someone to say, I'm doing that? Yeah, I'm doing that. They'll be judged for lying and saying they're doing that when they're not. Their life will go into more death and destruction in reality, while more and more people believe they're a good person. That's a tribulation to see that the world believes this about the wicked. They bless the greedy and renounce the poor all day long. Who are the poor? The poor in spirit, those that are humble to do the Father's will and deny themselves. They'll renounce them every single day. Messiah is poor in spirit. It's living what poor, the image of poor. It's living that in the heart, in spirit, for what poor in spirit means. It's not poor in the flesh, it's poor in spirit. The Father must be worshipped in spirit and in truth. Carnal man doesn't know what that means, so he'll just make something up in his mind for what that means, and he will create the image of what he thinks that means, which is just to make himself look poor, like a lot of rich people do. Oh, he only drives a dirty Jeep and he's a millionaire. Right. Do you know why he's doing that? It's for a wicked reason. That's why he's doing that. You can count on it. Not everyone does that exact same thing because someone has a slightly different way of making themselves righteous, but they're doing the same thing in their heart. It's the same thing. The richer a man gets worldly and carnally, the more poor he becomes in destruction, the more empty and bankrupt he is. Now, not speaking of being poor in spirit out of good, but poor in wickedness, bankrupt in truth, bankrupt in life. He becomes poorer and poorer every day, the richer he gets, because that love of money is piercing his soul to destruction with the sword in his gut. The word is piercing him. Instead of doing good for him, it becomes an enemy and pierces him. They were warned through his word that the love of money and riches and seeking it's going to pierce someone with many sorrows. These aren't the sorrows of good, to be sorrowful through repentance that leads to life. This is the sorrow of death, the other side of the sword that leads to death and no life. Just the other day, I heard more proof and saw more proof of the binding. Strong binding, hard to even comprehend, hard to believe. Unbelievable. Someone is saving money, a few dollars, by buying seeds instead of plants and telling others. They need to tell everyone because they're guilty. They can't hold it in. This is why I do it, because the plants are more expensive. They're a few dollars more than starting with seeds. And that same person, that's a blood relative, bought a $90,000 car, the most powerful production car Ford ever made for all time, 760 horsepower or around there. Just recently, just under $90,000, close to that. Getting rid of the other 400 and something horsepower car, because that obviously wasn't enough. And the other 10 cars that the person went through in the last 5 years, 10, 12 cars, because they're stuck in a delusion and they're not doing something out of good or what they need. It's a punishment in a cycle of just trying to repeat the high and carnality of what you did before. And you have to go higher and higher. It would just be like sexual perversion. It would just have to get worse and worse and worse. And it keeps doing less and less and less for some. It keeps destroying someone more. It would be like anything for the judgment working like this. What is after 700 some horsepower? I don't know. It doesn't have to be a car. It could be turning into a house or something bigger. Start flipping and changing that all around every other minute. No possibility to be content at the present time for anything at all. No trust at all. No faith at all. That's the proof right there. Those works of proof. The lack of any ability to be content is proof of faithlessness. It's utter proof. Never being able to be content at all, nothing, is proof of faithlessness. It always needs more. It complains about a few dollars, literally, handful of dollars. It gets more and more rich in this world. It's increasing in worldly possessions. It's increasing in riches, thinking that that's God's blessing. It's perversion and wickedness, what they do and think, the whole world. It is not from the Creator what they're saying, even though they're being allowed and given to receive more and more. It's for their own punishment and destruction, not for their blessing. That's not blessing. Messiah commands to not seek the world or anything in it and to love money, but to trust in the Creator continually for whatever we are given and move according to how He moves us and not move ourselves in a delusion. He commands that for His people in our heart, to do those things and keep that word and not love the world and money and follow all that and seek it and worship it and serve it, doing things for that intention constantly. That's a proof that someone doesn't obey Him or know Him, by constantly doing that same work, by needing more and more and more and just blowing money on things like that. What did the person say that day? They talked about someone they know, some friend that has some kind of business, powder coating. It doesn't matter what it is, but that's what it was. And the person has a problem. The more money he makes, he instantly has to spend it. But then he runs into a little bit of problem because of the debt and has to sell something that he bought previously and loses a lot of money every time he does sell it. And then he keeps doing that. The person that condemned and judged that person as if that's something bad, right? That's why they're saying it. They're trying to make themselves look good and hide that that's what they do by telling someone, by talking about someone else that does what they do. They think they hide their sins. It's incredible. I can't believe it. It's hard to believe. They think that's what's hiding their sins, is by judging someone evilly as if they're doing some kind of sin. But even though that would be, it doesn't matter. It's why someone's doing it. It's an evil work in the heart when they do this. Even if they're right about that being a sin, it doesn't matter. They're sinning when they do this because it's condemnation, because it's for the purpose of covering their sins. It's to make someone else look dirty and guilty, thinking that will hide their identical sin. Watch out for it. For whatever a carnal man judges, that's what he is himself, perfectly, word for word, dot for dot, jot for jot, tittle for tittle, however that's pronounced. That's what he is himself. He just did it. He just did it with 10 other cars, however many, 12, whatever the number is, many, in a short time, blowing a lot of money. It's not about blowing the money. It's a heart problem. It's a sin problem in the heart. Part of the judgment is that you just will blow money and be a fool, because it's utter foolishness. Father will just allow someone, he'll punish them, and one way out of a million is that someone blows money willingly and they think they're not. It's a punishment. They think they're saving a few dollars because of seeds instead of plants, and they just blew 90 grand. That could buy more plants for a million people for a lifetime. 90 grand for how many seeds that could buy, or baby plants. How many plants could that buy? So the rich man thinks in his mind that if he does one work, he creates his own law in his mind. I will save a few dollars. Now I'm good. I'm poor in spirit. I don't love money. I don't spend money. I don't love those things, because here's my proof. I saved money on a plant, a couple bucks, while he goes and does the contradicting thing full blown and blows 90 grand at the same time. How incredibly blind is that? Makes someone shake if they could see it. Everyone's been guilty of this to whatever degree, with scenarios that could be different. It's the same thing in the heart. If someone could see it, that's the point. It's the same work in the heart. That's what we got to not do. This is blind hypocrisy, to talk about someone else as if that's a problem and a sin, and never have anything to do with keeping it ourselves. Why did they say it if they're guilty of what that person does? To hide and cover their sins, not the devil definition of the image that they're selling you, which is murder to me and anyone else around. That they're trying to sell you a lie. That's murder. That's hating you. That's wanting you to believe their lie for their saving of their own soul so that you don't see their sin, which is saving its soul. It's covering itself with fig leaves spiritually in real time with real examples every day. It's doing what Adam and Eve are and do. It is insane. That's what that work is. It's insanity. It's evil. It's blind. That's what it is. To call it otherwise is to lie, to murder, to deceive, to suppress truth. It is evil. It is blind. How could someone save? They're not. They're blowing money. They're not saving by doing that one time for some plant. It's working the other way around. One time that someone proves that they don't save, or one time that they prove they love money, that proves for all time that they love money. Not one time they purposely try to do some kind of good in their own mind that they make up and then follow it, and now that covers all their other sins. It does not cover all their other sins. It is foolishness in reality if someone can see this. How can someone see that this is foolish, that someone's still down thousands of dollars? They didn't save any money by doing that with plants. So what's the result of a sin? It will end up just being foolish anyways. It will have to be foolish. So then you try to explain what that foolishness looks like. It actually is stupid and foolish beyond all imagination and comprehension. Their mind literally thinks that it's not foolish, that it's wise, and that it's working, and that it's covering their sins, and that condemning someone else and speaking about someone else's sins will cover that that's what they do themselves. They just spoke about themselves. They just poured out their folly. They're trying to get you to believe a lie, desperately wicked, desperately evil, while they're smiling, while they're calm in a chair talking. Yeah, that's the devil right there in the chair talking. That would be anyone. That's who and what the devil is. Calm. I'm calm. I'm calm. I'm calm. I'm calm. I'm ready to kill someone and choke them out. I'm calm. I'm calm. Or when someone fouls someone, their hands go straight up. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. You just deck someone in the face with your elbow and you're innocent now. Right. Do they believe their own lie? Oh, you bet they do. They will say, I didn't do it. No, I didn't do it. Swear I didn't do it. What are you talking? Then they will have to get angry and cook up a sorcery and pretend to get angry and then get angry because it's believing its own lie in real time at the what is it called, the ref that called it. They will have to put their sin and wrath and anger that they just did and unleashed on someone by decking them in the face on purpose, no accident, on purpose. They will have to unload their sin that they cannot bear onto the ref and try to transfer their guilt and blame it on the ref. Blame someone else for what they did. You wicked ref. You lying ref calling a foul on me. It happens all the time. Every game that ever has played on a stage like that, it's happening all the time. Every game, every day. They all do it. And just because someone doesn't look like they did it for one game doesn't mean they don't do it. What a bunch of nonsense and cover up that is. Yeah, they do it. And because someone's able to suppress their hatred and try to make it look like they don't hate someone, haven't they ever read? They twitch with their lips and fiddle their feet. They lie to their neighbor while they bless with their mouth. They curse them. They try to put love on as a cover to make it look like they don't hate them. When someone tries to look like they love you, they're covering murder and hate for you right in that time. How are you doing? Are you making it? Just making it okay? Because they've been exposed by light that they're not okay. So then they're going to try to dump it on you and say, are you okay? Just making it out in this world? They're talking about themselves and they're blind. They're literally blind. It's easy to see when there's a little bit of healing in sight from above. It is utterly foolish and blind. They're talking about themselves. Always. It's what they are. It's what they're guilty of, and they love you by trying to dump their sins on you, which is murder. That's how much the enemy loves you. It's how much the enemy loves me. It always does evil. It's always doing evil to people. It loves people so much. No, this one's hot. There's nothing smooth. There's nothing nice according to man's niceness in this word. Not going to try to sound like something for the purpose of the image and for people's worship. Only ever needing to speak the truth. That's what will do something good for someone is to do good and speak truth. This is all evil. This world is evil. It's diseased. It's sick in the heart. That's the true disease that we read of. That's what it really means. Something to do with the heart. That's the highest first thing and heavenly thing. That's the disease of man, is his hypocrisy and his murderous evil heart. It doesn't go away. It's not curable, like the Father says. What is he speaking of that's not curable? What's the heavenly thing? That's the first thing. That's the main thing. That's what it is. Something heavenly, spiritual about the heart, not flesh. That's some lowly earthly thing. And then discernment would be needed. Very much discernment is needed to discern between the natural and spiritual and how to balance these two things. Because it doesn't mean that there is zero importance, literally, to lowly earthly things. There's just zero importance compared to the spiritual. It can give no one any life. They could try to be perfect in the flesh, even though no one can even remotely do that. And it will do them no good. It has zero value. It can do nothing for them concerning true life and truth. That's why Messiah says the flesh profits nothing. Doesn't mean we should cut off our foot because it's just not the true walking, because it's the natural walking. We should cut off our feet because it's worthless concerning walking spiritually in a straight line, because walking with our literal feet does not prove we're walking in a straight line. Should we cut off our feet? No, we read not to even cut self, let alone mutilating ourselves. No, it does not automatically mean some wicked thing because of some good thing. That's how man sees everything. It means something wicked, something good to him. Because something is so good and far above the other things, now it means that something's wicked because of it. No, it doesn't. That takes a lot of balance. Only a little bit of extra weight on the balance will make it go off balance. Just as if there's 1,000 pounds off balance. 1 grain of sand making it going off balance is the same unbalance as 1,000 pounds unbalanced. It still has the same effect. It's still going to be unbalanced and no good. It doesn't matter how many pounds off it is, whether it's 1 pound or 1,000. It's either balanced or it's not. One of the two things. There is no lukewarm middle. Is it balanced or not? Who cares how much weight? Man makes it about the weight in all things. He makes it about the numbers. It's not about the numbers. It never was about numbers. Is it good or is it evil? Period. Everything else needs to be quiet and go into silence. Was it good or evil from the heart? Period. Nothing else. A line drawn between the sand and the ocean. There is no mixing allowed. That's man. He is the mixed thing. He thinks that thing exists and that it works and that it can be so. It's only so in a delusion, in punishment, in death. That's the possibility of lukewarm becoming vomit that Messiah vomited out. The vomit on the ground is the people that he vomited out. The vomit is the people. It is the vomit. It becomes what is vomited out that's hated with the righteous hatred. And it deserves to be hated because it's foul. It's gross. It's disgusting what evil is. It deserves to be righteously hated. Not the hate of man, the hate of Hitler onto people and that wicked hate. The hate of the Creator is set apart. No one knows that hatred unless they're being given the same hatred also. No one knows that hate unless they're being given to hate all things that are evil with the same hate and to love all things good with the same love. Love never meant anything to man except something wicked and evil and adulterous and lustful. That's what love is. Love is wicked murder and hate. in this world. When they call something love, it's murder and hate and lust. It's not love. Love is not some image you make up and pretend real quick to put on the image and cover up sin. No one can do that without deceiving their neighbor. Whether someone's deceived or not, it's a work of deception. You try to deceive the neighbor and tried and did that work to the person. Whether it deceives them or not, it's work of deception. But the goal is to deceive. That's why it's done. So that someone believes a certain image about you, worried about what other people think, is all that anyone cares about. Now the works will prove whether that's so for every individual that ever lives and is alive now. Not the mouth, not the image, not the words, the works during a test will prove whether someone cares what other people think of them constantly or not. Someone will just say, I don't care what people think of me, and they lie. They've never done the good work a day in their life. The only thing they care about is what people think of them. It's why they live. It's living for what people think of them. Work, act, and do according to whatever the scenario is, changing into yellow when it needs to and green when it needs to, like a lizard, depending on the situation, depending on what the cover around looks like, what the background looks like. It morphs into that. Mr. Salesman lied many, many lies recently. Very many lies. Lied about it having cruise control, lied about it having leather seats directly with the text. Easy to prove I could do it. What does that mean? Someone can do it. It's just the truth. Easy to prove a little piece of the lie. It was way worse than that. Lied about it having a new bumper and repaired perfectly. Nope, it was the same one, same old one. What happens when you say that it's not new? It doesn't look new. They morph. The salesman morphs. Watch it happen all the time. He morphs into the image of the background to blend in. He goes, yeah, no, it's not new. You told me it was brand new and repaired, that you can't even see the difference from the bump it had, whatever little wreck it had at the front bumper. You could see the hairline cracks where it was bumped. It's not new. There's a broken plastic support piece behind there, I found out later, which I expected to try to make it a little better. Liars. Lied about everything. What did you tell the truth about? You try to devalue things on purpose so that you make more money. You try to devalue what people have that they value. You try to devalue that it's only been the second owner. You go on for 5 minutes straight rambling on how that means nothing because you try to devalue what I have. Not as if we didn't expect that to be done, but this is all evil. The salesman's in great, great delusion and darkness, walking in darkness every day, doing this to people and deceiving them. Not only just deceiving and lying straight up, but hiding things, hoping you don't see a bunch of things, hoping you don't see that it had a pretty bad oil leak that was coming from the oil filter. That was an easy fix, but it could have been something a lot more serious. Well, hide that, won't say anything. You're an idiot, you won't know, says the salesman in his mind. I'll hide that it's a smoker car that was at some point, and that it has a little bit of smell, but I'll hide it with a strong supernova Christmas tree. And it does hide it perfectly. Until that thing wears out completely, it'll hide it. We'll hide all kinds of things, which is lying. Man creates his own definition so that he can say it's not lying. He's just not saying something. No, you're not saying it willingly, which is a lie. You want to hide it. How many times a day does someone do that in that kind of job, for example? How many times a day do they do evil? Man, how much murder is done every single day in a job like that? It pretty much is required. Not that it's literally required, but the problem is not that the hand is being forced by someone literally, and yet there is a forcing to it, because here's what happens if you tell the truth and nothing but the truth as a salesman. You lose your job, you're out, you're done, you're hosed. That's what will happen. So out of fear, someone has to start lying more. They have to conform to the lie to keep and save their soul. Because if they don't have a job, how are they going to eat? How are they going to live? How are they going to stay alive? It's a pretty big deal. So someone sacrifices, right? They think they do the good sacrifice. They sacrifice their life for sin to die more. It's pretty stupid. They sacrifice their soul to save their soul. It doesn't work. You're dying for trying to save your soul. The Father said so through Messiah. Messiah is the Father's word. He lived it. Every believer needs to live it now. He who saves his life shall be losing it. That word is for destruction, lose, perish, and the word for life there is soul. He who saves his soul shall be destroying it, losing their life for trying to save it. Stop trying to save it, carnal man, carnal men of the earth. Stop trying to save your soul. It's proving something, though. It's proving fear, greed, love of money. It's proving selfishness. It will murder and lie to others. It has to, outside of the Creator's way. The Father's testing someone by seeing what they do under pressure. What will you do to others to save yourself? He's trapped. He can't come out of it because he doesn't believe at all. There is no way provided for an unbeliever. He will murder, lie, cheat, steal, rob, destroy to save his soul. It's being proven every day. And I'm frustrated because no one actually believes this. No one. The world doesn't believe this, save such very few. But the world, though, the many, the people around us every day in the world, they don't believe it. It's right there, the proof right in their face that what they do, it proves it. Proves they're liars, proves they hate others, proves they don't care about anyone except themselves. They'll destroy anyone and everyone. They'll sacrifice millions before they sacrifice themselves, like Messiah did for others. What will they think of you if you sacrifice yourself? An abomination, a wicked man, condemned to death with the wicked is what they'll think of you for doing the good. You won't get any praise from the world, that's for sure. None, zero. If someone gets praise, it's not because they did good, it's because they sinned. If someone does perfect good at all times, they will get zero praise. But of course, we're not that perfect thing instantly, but this is the truth. A believer, it can look like a believer receives some worship and praise because they did some kind of sin. And maybe they're not big enough to see it yet. You know, the Father hasn't shown them yet on that thing. But it is because of some kind of sin, not because of a good work done, not the perfect work. It gets no praise. Messiah got no praise from men. In people's heart. Remember, the act is very deceiving. I'm not talking about what it looks like, because it can be made to look like that's a lie all the time. But in the heart, it's not happening. Someone will hate you for doing actual good in their heart. How do they hide it? By making it look like they like you and like what you said. You become and morph into your enemy. That's why the world knows about that. What if you can't defeat your enemy? You join them. That's how you try to defeat them afterwards, by joining them, by getting inside, by being a coward. That only a coward does that. A fearful, insecure coward morphs and becomes the enemy because he's afraid to say what he really believes and thinks of you. He can't do it. He's a coward because that's truth. He can't speak truth, even if it's something evil about you. That would be speaking the truth of someone's heart. They can't speak the truth of their heart. Never. Only if it goes for their image, for their self-gain, can someone say something true, which is not speaking truth, because that's for self. There's no pressure. There's no test. Then someone can say something true because it makes them look good. It favors that. It happens to line up with making them look good, their image. It favors them in every way that someone thinks it will. Then they can do that. What do they do when it doesn't favor them? That's what proves whether someone tells the truth or not not the other thing. Anyone can do the other thing. Anyone can do good to those that do good to them. What reward will we have? Messiah said. All sinners do that. Hitler does good to those that worship him and bow the knee to him. He can act like he does good to them. He doesn't do actual good. That's not the good Messiah is speaking of. But you have to talk like this to get the truth out. You have to sound like you're contradicting to speak his truth. Because we're talking about a contradicting, wicked world that's not perfect, not even remotely perfect. It's the opposite of perfect. It's evil. The good he speaks of is so-called good. It's doing something that looks good and is considered good by people, by this world. So then Hitler gives a gift to his soldier because the soldier worships and obeys Hitler. Anybody can do that when someone does good to us. What does someone do when evil is done to us proves whether they're true or false, whether they lie or speak the truth, whether they do good or evil. No other thing proves anything because it's no test, no pressure, a spiritual pressure when someone does evil to us. It's not a pressure when someone does what we believe is some kind of good, some kind of what looks good. There's no pressure there. This can be tested. Test, 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 testing, test all things, test all things, prove all things. That means prove all things. That means test all things. There is nothing discluded. Everything that needs tested is included in all things. Prove all things. No one is doing that. They will try to suppress that. They will say you're not allowed to do this. They will be a fool and proven that they hate the truth for trying to say you're not allowed to do this. If one can speak truth to their own soul, this can be tested. That means to pay attention, see what it feels like in spirit. If someone just says something to you, here you go, and it wasn't some kind of like violent evil, you can see there was no pressure. You could test that. When someone does evil, there will be a murderous intention, some kind of wicked thing. It'll put pressure on the person. If it was evil, it will do that. That pressure can be tested, can be seen if someone is speaking truth to their own self. That is, if they're not lying to their own self. Now, it doesn't change that this can be tested because everyone's lying to themselves. That's not the truth's fault. That people lie to themselves and won't speak truth to themselves, that they'll lie and show a blind eye to it and partiality because they don't want to see the truth. It doesn't change that it can be tested, that the truth is still shining and true regardless of what man does. And I found it to be utterly true, violently true, perfectly true. What does someone do when evil is done? That's the only thing that matters, not when someone does good in quotation marks. I think someone, anyone that knows the truth can know what Messiah's word means there. We learn it. Well, they will know if they don't. They will learn it. They have to seek it, though. Ask for what it means, because we didn't know. Whatever the first thing was, it was the wrong, evil thing. That was the first thing. The carnal thing. Blind thing. I don't know. Don't even know how bad it is. I know it's worse than whatever I see. I know it's way worse. And the sorcery is way worse. I don't know just how bad it is with sorcery and doctors. I just know it's bad, but I don't even know how bad. Because there's more to see. That's the point. There's more to see that I'm not seeing. And it'll be astonishing to see even more. It'll be even harder to believe that it's that bad. The more truth he gives us to see. It's unbelievable. It's so crazy. It's how blind this world is, how blind man is. The problem is everyone is already believing their own lie, so it doesn't look like the truth is true. That already has to be fought. It takes some fighting to get through that image. To break the image to pieces. That's what we read. Dash it to pieces. Break it from our temple to pieces It wants to get inside so that it covers the truth. As long as we believe the image that gets in our temple, we'll never believe the truth and never do it. No one can do whatever they don't believe or see at all. So as long as the lie is believed, it does hide and cover the truth. That's why it's done. That's why people lie. Because if someone believes the lie, it will hide whatever is true. It will do that. It will absolutely do that. So that image has to be broken and dashed to pieces. The Israelites dashed the pieces, dashed the gods, smashed them and break them down. The Creator is saying one thing and man is doing something else. Well, he bared long with all their sin and still is doing it to this day. They didn't know what that really meant. We read the letter of what man thinks it means. There it is, because it takes nothing to have a carnal understanding of something. That's who everyone is. A natural man that sees natural things. It takes nothing to see that. Just a little bit of explaining and telling someone, and anybody could see that. We read the letter, what we think that means, and the picture that comes to mind for what that means ourselves is what they thought it meant and is what they did. But that's not what it actually really means. We're not to do any evil to the enemy. So we can't storm into someone's house and start breaking all their gods and their things, you know. It's not what it means to go do evil now to the enemy. That's what the carnal man thinks it means. That's what Hitler does. He's no different than Hitler. Carnal rulers are no different than anyone else that ever lived. That is who the man is. That's who Adam and Eve is. They're no good. There's nothing good in the flesh. The Apostle Paul says he finds nothing good in his flesh. The desire to do it is not there, the actual good. It doesn't exist. That's the truth. It doesn't exist in our flesh to do good. It's not there. There's no power, there's no will to do it from the flesh, from self. There is no desire. It's literally missing. To actually want to do it is not there. It literally doesn't exist. How on earth can we do the good then if it doesn't exist? What a difficult way. Somehow there's a way. Somehow it's got to be done, even though that's true, that there is no will in the flesh to do good. There is a way still. It's just not requiring, not of self. It's why we have to deny self further to do the good, sacrifice self to do more good. In the meantime, the wicked are sacrificing others for their self-gain, carnal gain, and good, for their riches, for their image, for their fame, for their approval, for their worship. They're sacrificing others on the altar and slaughtering them by lying, cheating, robbing, killing, murdering, committing adultery, lying every day all the time. That's murdering others. That's sacrificing others for its own gain. The Father's way is sacrificing self for others' gain, for the true gain. Carnal man sacrifices others and gets the false gain, which is just worldly gain, carnal gain. The true sacrifice of self is to have others gain the Father's things, real things, heavenly things, the true life. Things that no one can look and see, and therefore will never look like a believer's even doing that to this world because it's invisible. That's the good news. Who believes it? That's the good news. Who believes it's good or that it even exists? Not many. People aren't talking about real. They're not talking about what's real. They're not talking about the true condition and sins of the heart. They're not talking about what the Father's word is talking about. But the letter of the law, and someone can do that all day long. And indeed they do, especially the religion. The way to hide constantly is to pour out the folly for what someone does and put it on someone else. That's how they hide. the truth for what they really believe and do, which is to reveal it. And while they reveal it, they think they hide it. It was like in the example earlier. How does someone hide the guilt, the sin of blowing all that money, loving money, serving it, getting something so crazy, so powerful, that number one at the top, thousands of dollars, and getting rid of other perfectly good cars over and over and over again? How do they hide this literal guilt for the sin they do that the Father judges? They find someone else that does what they do and condemns them, exposes them. This is the devil's exposing. The devil exposes evil. No, he doesn't. It only looks like it. It needs to be seen why someone is looking like they hate evil and expose other people's sins as if they hate sin. They do not hate sin. They do what they expose continually. You cannot hate what you always do. I'm a liar if I say I hate walking, but that's all I do is walk. If that was true, I would never walk again because I hate walking. It would become that truth. First a little bit, then more, and then perfectly. Somewhere in there, you do the works to prove the words. When someone never does what they make it look like they are and hate, they don't actually hate it. They cannot hate what they continuously do themselves. They do that. They just did what they expose someone else of doing themselves. That's hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is blind sin. And that person will think they're literally righteous and good. And they're sinning. They're full of sin while they think they're good. They're lying to people, lying to you, lying, wanting you to believe a lie, to hide their sins for their sake, caring only about themselves. They're willing to sacrifice you and lie to you and destroy you by wanting you to desperately believe their lie so that it covers their sins for their own carnal good, for their own covering of their nakedness that's easy to see, that they're not actually hiding. They're not hiding it from the Creator. He sees all things all the time. He sees right through the grave. There is no covering that can actually cover from Him. And the more discernment and sight He gives, His people are also seeing these things. They don't believe that it can be seen. They believe their cover is that good, strong, wise, and it's thin. It's like paper thin, worthless. Just here, let me tear it real quick. There's your cover. How's that cover doing? See, you're naked too. It's just a cover, just tricking people. You think your cover's so clever and wise, Adam and Eve. You think it actually works, and in a sick way it does because of everyone else doing the same thing, wanting to believe that and being deluded so hardcore. But it doesn't actually work. See, there's two things. It seems like it works because of that, but it's not actually working. It's foolish. It's easy to see through with a little bit of sight and discernment. And once someone starts learning and knowing what man really is, I mean, there's no covering that works. We know what man is, naked. There's no covering that works. We already know that he's naked. He's that first, period, because the Father's word is true. It's everyone. The cover won't work. We already know the cover is a lie. It's there to deceive. We look at it from a bird's eye view saying, yeah, it exists because they're trying to hide. Cute. It's not working. Now we have to know that they don't know any better and that they literally believe that works. They need to believe that works and not do evil to the enemy because of it, but to know how it works, to know that that's the evil that man's doing, to see through it, know why it's being done. Don't let the serpent have more wisdom than us, or else we'll be deceived by its trick, by its snakery. Be wise as serpents. Meet the wisdom of the stupid devil. Meet that level of wisdom at the very least so that we're not deceived by any trick and plot that the enemy is always, constantly doing and trying to put on you and others and me. It will smile to your face all day long while it's literally trying to get you to believe some deceitful plot and deceive you and get you to believe some kind of lie. Out of nowhere, out of the blue, randomly, seemingly random, any day, any time, it'll do that to you without a cause because it's wicked. But it'll especially do that to the light because light exposes actual darkness. It'll have a lust and a draw to do that. It will be like a fly going the moth into the light, into the flame. It's drawn to the light to try to destroy it because that's the light that's exposing them just for existing. It exposes the moth, and the moth goes to the flame only to be burned and destroyed, only to destroy itself by trying to destroy someone. The enemy always thinks it's wiser than everyone else and that no one can figure out its deception. Pretty foolish, because deception is foolish. It's not grand, it's not strategic, there's nothing wise about it. With a little bit of light and power from above, the foolishness of it can be seen easily. That it's a vain, horrible, contradicting, evil, dumb plot that requires a wicked heart to do it. And man will gladly do it. Gladly. That's a hard thing to see, that he will gladly do sin and love sin, takes joy in sin. Pride. Now, while they take pride in it, their destruction can be seen right in the middle of the image. They love sin and they're being destroyed for it right at the same time. Their smile is like a smile of wrath and judgment. While they take glee in sin and love doing evil to others, they're being destroyed at the exact same time, seeing both things to rightly divide the two things happening. They're being told that they're sinners and wicked and they have a guilty conscience and they know they're doing evil while they smile about the evil they do. What a great contradiction at all times. That's the punishment, to be in this contradiction and condemnation. It knows it does evil. It does it anyways, like a dog. Why the Creator in heaven says that men are like dogs and sorcerers, because it's no different than a dog. What a beast is in its heart is what man is. It is no different. It is selfish. It tears things up. It thinks it's fun to do evil and destroy and chew on people. It takes great fun and glee in doing evil and devouring and destroying things. It's like restraining a beast. It doesn't actually care. It's just some kind of restraint. It's not changing its heart. It's just the fear of punishment for something is overcoming doing a certain thing, and that would be called restraint. It's like restraining a dog. The dog is not spiritual, no matter how tamed or restrained it is. It's forcing itself to do what it doesn't really want to do because of some kind of fear of what happens if I don't do it. That's not righteousness. That's working out of fear. That's just restraint on the beast by the Creator. And he may loosen someone's restraint a little bit at any time, and they'll go off and do what they always wanted to do, which proves that that restraint wasn't real, works from the heart, doing actual good. There's a difference between doing good and wanting to do good and restraining self from doing evil. They are two completely different things that have nothing to do with each other. It is a violently different thing in the heart, but it looks the same on the outside. Looks the same on the outside. It's not the same. Man will count it righteous when he's restrained. He will count himself righteous for not doing the worst thing possible. I could have killed you and I didn't. He will say that out loud because of how guilty he is. He pours out his folly for what he really wants to do. He would like to kill you, but he's being restrained by the Creator. He's being restrained some way, somehow, through something. Doesn't matter how it's working. It's just happening. He's doing it. I was told that face to face by a raging man screaming at me, chasing me down, following me one day. Started walking and then he stopped. He didn't go any further, screaming across the street. Too afraid to come any further. said he could have done something so much worse to me. So that was his righteousness right there. That's why he said it. He gives you the worst possible thing that he would love to do. He's already doing that in his heart to you, which is what counts for murder. But he was restrained from doing that literal worst thing, literally. Then he says, I could have done this and didn't. He counts it righteousness to himself. He's God. He counts righteousness to himself, not the creator accounting it righteous. It's man accounting his own self righteous, not the creator. He accounts himself righteous by comparing the worst thing and saying he didn't do it to the better thing, which is something lesser, not as bad. That contrast he uses to make himself righteous. It's like saying I'm a 10-pound turd instead of 5, or a 5-pound turd instead of 10, instead of 1 pound, 2 pounds instead of 20. That's what that looks like. That's what that is. It's still a turd. It's not righteous. It's still wicked and evil. That's the only way man can make himself righteous, when he's doing violent evil in the middle of evil. He got to think of something worse and say he's not doing the worst thing. And that contrast will make himself look righteous in his mind. No, it's not working. It's not righteous. It's evil. That's not to say that it's not worse to do something worse. That's not the point. Yeah, that would be worse. So what? It means nothing. What the man did is still evil. What the sinner does is still evil. It's not righteous. 5 pounds of poop is not righteous. It's a 100% crap. No byproduct, or a lot of it, a lot of synthetics and chemicals and GMOs and vaccines and garbage. The world doesn't love anyone. It needs to sell that it's going green because it's literally destroying and wanting to destroy. And if a little bit of restraint is loosed, as it has been over the years, more and more, it will literally destroy everything and anything. Everything and anything. It would love to do that, but it's being restrained to some degree. The restraint will completely unleash it at the end. It's already unleashing, but it will be fully unleashed at some point, and man will know what he really is someday. Those that believe already are knowing. They don't want to save the earth. What does that even mean? They don't give healthy products and food. They don't want to do that. All these things that look good are covers for what they're really doing and what their intentions really are. They're covers. If you believe the cover, you won't believe and find out the real intention and wicked work that they do and want to do. Don't believe the cover. Don't believe the lie. Discern it. That's what we have to do. Discern everything, every matter, and not blindly believe the cover and the image and the lie, which is the easiest thing to do at all times, is believe the cover and the lie, the image of the beast. It comes in so many forms. What monstrous reality? What hardcore reality? Man makes it look like there's no creator. It's man doing the evil. Man should make no mistake. Man needs to learn that all the sin and the destruction within and the death and wickedness and disease is all because of man's sin, not because the creator is sinning. He cannot take accountability for what he does. He just can't do it. An ant has more wisdom than a man, has more order than a man. An ant prepares better than a man does. It literally has more wisdom than a man. I can't hardly believe it myself. An ant has more wisdom than a man. Yes, it does. A carnal man has no more wisdom than an ant. No wisdom at all. But the things that the world counts as wisdom is from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. Certainly makes itself look like it's wise, like the Wizard of Oz. tricks people into blowing up some crazy God image that it's really not. If we believe the Wizard of Oz image, we will never see the cowardly sinner and the intentions of the heart of that man. He will hide himself from everyone, like all leaders do and company owners do. Where are they? These frogs. They're hiding somewhere. You never see of them. You never hear of them directly. The more sin someone does, the more hiding they're in. They're in fear every day, and no one should envy their life and their possessions that they have so much abundance. They're paying for it dearly, every possession they have. They're paying for it mightily. It would be better if they were never born 10 times over than the condition that they're in every day. That's how strong the judgment is on someone in that much delusion and sin. There's nothing to actually envy, which is also a thing that needs to be done. That's not a cakewalk, because it can and will be tempting at times to envy the wicked, because they keep on increasing for doing more evil. They keep getting more possessions for doing evil to others. It's really happening. The wicked increase, they prosper, we read. That speaking of the prosperity of their money and their possessions, they really do prosper like that. But inside, they're dead. They're dying more and more. They are the opposite of prospering. They are more bitter and deceived and darkened and destroyed than any other person in the world, the people at the top. They pay for being at the top. The Creator makes sure that they're not getting away with anything, even though it's made to look like they are. We can't be saying that they are, because the Creator is not an unrighteous judge. They're not getting away with it. Just because they're not in literal prisons, it doesn't mean they're not in a prison. They're in a prison. They're in a prison to their sin and their evil, every day tormented about the deceptions, the lies they tell others and do to others, deceive others, scam others, rip people off all the time. They do that and they're guilty for it every single day, and they keep doing it. That's a pretty strong judgment. They're miserable, wretched sinners every single day for what they do. And they can't figure out that they are in that condition because of what their heart does. If they did good, they would not be in that same condition. But who believes that? If someone can trick someone into thinking what sin is and what it's not, they're done. It's over. They're deceived. Because now their definition of what sin is something different than the truth. They will never do the truth. They will never cease sinning, because they don't believe sin is sin. They believe that sin is something else, that sin is not sin. Don't actually believe that such and such is a lie, is a deception. They'll say something like, no, it's not. I don't do that. How many times have we heard that? As long as someone believes, no, it's not, I don't do that, they will never be healed, because they're calling sin righteous and they're calling righteousness sin. They're not acknowledging that sin is sin. They will never stop doing it. They will always be in death and darkness. How could they come out of it if they keep on believing in their heart what we believe is what we become? So if someone believes that sin is good, they become the destruction sin really is. But if they started learning and believing that sin is destruction, start turning away from it, fearing doing evil, which is a good thing, then you turn away from it. Father won't curse someone for turning away from sin. If the wicked turns from his way and does what's right, he will not die in his sin. But if the righteous turns from his righteousness and does sin, that righteous person will die. The Father is so perfectly impartial, not partial, both ways for all things. It's a fearful news for believers and good news for the wicked. But it's evil news to the wicked. In truth, it's good news, because it matters what you do, and it would change. He would give blessing for doing good, but it's wicked news to the wicked because he hates truth and good. So there's these two things again. They are two different things Sounds like it contradicts, but they're not the two same things. Therefore, it doesn't contradict. Contradiction is two different things about one thing. It's two contradicting things about one thing. That's a real contradiction. The sun is hot, the sun is cold. It's one sun. It's one or the other. You cannot be both. That's a contradiction. Not something that sounds like a contradiction. That doesn't mean it's contradicting. That's most of his word is sounding contradicting, and it's not contradicting. It's just someone's lack of sight and knowledge on what the truth is. What they comprehend of themselves is contradiction. It's contradicting. It's not the Father's actual truth that's contradicting. It's what man thinks it means. His own understanding is contradicting. Contradictions are no good. Expose those that contradict, we read. Don't hide it. The world hides contradictions. It passes it as if it's good, as if there's no problem. No, expose it. Don't hide it. All without doing evil, of course. You know, that balance always, that balance scale constantly. Have to find out what that balance looks like and how it works. No one can give it except the Creator above. Through Messiah, no one will give it for us. No one can do that power. They can't make a seed grow. But how deceitful is it that man has the power and ability given to him to take a seed, plant it in the dirt, and it grows? It looks like he made it grow. It really does. No, he didn't. And yet he did. Two different things. Someone will think they did it. They're lying because the answer is they did not do it themselves, but because it looks like it, they can sell that they did. That's pride. The Father makes the seed grow. Someone can water because they're given power in their hand to do it. Something like we read about said in that way because there's like power in the hand to do it. It's given someone to do it, and they can throw a seed in the ground and add water. But the Father adds the increase. He makes it actually grow, but it has to go through the law that he created, which means it needs to go through some kind of order. It needs to be in the dirt. It needs nutrition. It needs water. All those things that he created, his law, he will not break his law. Now someone thinks that there is no creator because the Father did this with this world. You can't be seeing it like that. That's the faithless world that this is. He's doing it all. It does look like what man says, though. Because there's some kind of natural order and explanation for something, that means there's no creator. That's as dumb as it gets. It's so foolish. It's evil. But that could trick something. That does trick someone at first. It has power over them. It seems like that's true what people say in the world, that there's no creator. Why would that mean that there's no creator? It's utter foolishness. It's proof that there is. Why on earth does something grow out of seemingly nothing? It's a constant miracle. Because man plants and the Father allows someone to plant a garden, even though they sin every day and hate him, he still allows them some kind of good thing, some kind of literal good fruit to receive. He allows it to grow. He keeps his word. He doesn't break it. And it grows and it produces something, and the carnal man likes what it produces, and he gives no thanks because he thinks he did it. And there is no creator in his heart. In his heart, there is no creator. He did it because it looks like he did it. Man, is that deceitful or what? That is incredibly deceitful. That is a war inside because it looks like he did it. And pride wants to take credit for everything of self. That is rebellion and pride. No one even breathes a single breath besides the Creator giving it every day. Nothing is done apart from him, and yet things are done through man and through creation and through law. Just because a law is true now, it's not going to grow on concrete with no dirt, with nothing there, no nutrition. Why? Because the Father's law and word is true on that thing, because he's consistent. He doesn't break it. It looks like it's not growing because man didn't do it. He's doing it through man. They can't be disconnected. This is how all his word works. It's through people. It can't be disconnected. It's not one or the other. It's somehow that perfect balance of him doing it, of which without him there is nothing. It would never happen without his power. But yet it's happening through man also at the same time. Because he's not distant, far away, like, but he does become that to someone's heart. But he's not that in reality. He's not doing that evil. He's far away because someone has made him far away with their sin. He's not the evil that someone claims he is. That reality became that way because that's what they believe about him. He gives that reality to those that believe that evil about him. He will make sure that's what their reality is according to their belief. That's what it will be then, because they believe it. As long as they believe that in their heart, it will stay that way. They will see proof in their mind that he's evil. And it's a delusion. It's not actual proof that he's evil, but it will be given to see proof that he's evil because that's what they believe and want to believe. A man is what he thinks. He looks at you over the table, over the dinner table, and smiles, but he's cursing you. Can't stand your guts. That's the devil. He desires you. Like the devil desires Peter, because he needs to get near Peter and let him in the temple to destroy him. He needs to get authority from the person, meaning to allow it, to open the door. Everything goes through that. There is no actual forcing, even though there's rape and forcing going on. Fine discernment there again. Everything that happens is because the person opened the door to it and did literally allow it. Even though the intention is forcing and that work is being done, nothing is actually forced like that. It got there somehow and it was allowed and the door was open to it. It tries to get in someone's temple and they allowed it to enter. They did that. Man did that. Every man does that. That's what everyone did. Everyone, everyone. That's now not what not to do. Do not allow it to enter. Cain allowed it to enter his temple. He had to allow it. It's what they show in the movies too, because they're pouring out who and what they are. They're not speaking truth. They're just pouring out what they love, the wickedness and destruction and contradiction they're in. They show through movies, devil movies, that someone has to allow it. They have to open the door. The devil needs permission from the Creator and then through man, and man allows it. The devil can't just do whatever he wants at any time to Job. It needs to be allowed for a testing by the Creator. The devil's only intention is to destroy anyone and everyone. That's not the Creator's intention, but man does it look like it because he allows it for a testing, for a purpose that is beyond our sight, which we need to find out and have faith anyways that it's going to work out for some kind of good, because if we don't believe that in our heart, it won't work out for any good because we don't believe it. We don't believe his word. Faith is hoping for things that we don't see yet, hoping for what will come if we remain and believe, but we don't see it at the present time. That's what faith and hope is seeing what we don't have, don't see a way for it, believe anyways that he can do it. that a way will be made somehow, some way. We just believe him for him to do it. Acknowledge that we can't see, that I can't see how, and that self, seeing that self does not believe of self, and yet at the same time believing that he can and will do it, while seeing self can't and doesn't believe, while being careful not to actually disbelieve in him. What a fine balance. Seems so fine. A grain of sand would make the scale tip. I mean, when we say something backwards in spirit, it's right in spirit, but it comes out backwards. Was it backwards in the heart, or did it just sound like it? Because I've noticed that happens here and there, but that here and there seems to happen quite a bit. Sometimes it's caught, sometimes it's not. We say it perfectly backwards, but it was not backwards in the heart and spirit. It just came out that way. Because seeing something in spirit, it's one. It goes back and forth. There is no direction in spirit. It's all one. But it came out carnally backwards through words. And if someone can only see the letter of the word, they will see only hard, cold steel and contradiction with no warmth, no life, no light, no truth. It flows back and forth, back and forth. It's all one, the truth. One branch goes to another, back and forth freely as often as it wants, as many times, 50 ways that way, one way this way, now 50 ways the other way, one way that way, and it's all not sin. It all goes back and forth between each other because they're all one. There's no direction in spirit like that. But now this is not speaking of different kind of order and direction, as if their father has no direction or no law, no order. This is different. I think I'll finish with just seeing what I open up to here. Let's see what we got. That's the thud of horror, his word. Where are we? Right there. Ezekiel 31, 32, 9. What do we read? I will also trouble the hearts of many peoples when I bring your destruction among the nations, into the countries which you have not known. Yes, I will make many peoples astonished at you, and their king shall be horribly afraid of you when I brandish my sword before them, and they shall tremble every moment, every man for his own life. How fitting. In the day of your fall, for thus says Jehovah, Master Jehovah, the sword of the king of Babylon shall come upon you by the swords of the mighty warriors of all of them, the most terrible. I think I said his word is horrible, which I was meaning terrible in this exact way that we read here. Frightening. Before I opened it, the most terrible of the nations, I will cause your multitude to fall. You shall plunder the pomp of Egypt, and all its multitude shall be destroyed, and I will destroy all its animals from beside its great waters. The foot of man shall muddy them no more, nor shall the hooves of animals muddy them. Then I will make their waters clear and make their rivers run like oil, says Master Jehovah, when I make the land of Egypt desolate, and the country is destitute of all that once filled it. When I strike all who dwell in it, then they shall know that I am Jehovah. They shall lament for her, for Egypt, and for all her multitude. That sure sounds similar to what we read in Revelation, says Master Jehovah. Son of man, wall over the multitude of Egypt and cast them down to the depths of the earth, her and the daughters of the famous nations, with those who go down to the pit. Whom do you surpass in beauty? Go down, be placed with the uncircumcised. They shall fall in the midst of those slain by the sword. She is delivered to the sword, drawing her and all her multitude. The strong among the mighty shall speak to him out of the midst of hell, out of Sheol, with those who help him. They have gone down, they lie with the uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Timothy. Nevertheless, the solid foundation of Elohim stands, having this seal. The Master knows those who are his, and let everyone who names the name of Messiah depart from iniquity. But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Where am I? Flee also youthful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the master out of a pure heart, but avoid foolish, ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. And a servant of the master must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient in humility, correcting those who are in opposition, if Elohim perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. What did Messiah say of the Pharisees? That they desired to do their father's will, the will of the devil. But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of Elohim, having a form of godliness but denying its power. And from such people turn away. For of this sort are those who creep into households and make captives of gullible women, loaded down with sins, and led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now, as Jannes and Jambres resisted Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds disapprove concerning the faith, but they will progress no further, for their folly will be manifest to all, as theirs also was. It's easy to take captive of someone loaded down with sins. That's why the wicked do this, because it's easier, because they know something about the evil, that it's easier. The more sin someone is, the more blind they literally really are. The more willing they will be to do some kind of abomination. It will be easier. And the wicked know something about the wicked. They don't know the truth, but they know something about the evil that they love to do, that man loves to do. This can be done in many ways. This can be done in all kinds of ways. Lusting to deceive someone is that same work. Lusting to lie to someone is one with that same wicked evil. I think that's it. Earlier here we read, this is a faithful saying, for if we died with him, we shall also live with him. If we endure, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us. He also will deny us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful. He cannot deny himself. Remember that Yehoshua, Messiah of the seed of David, was raised from the dead, according to my gospel, for which I suffer trouble as an evildoer, even to the point of chains. But the word of Elohim is not chained. Looks like it. Therefore I endure all things for the sake of the elect, that they may also obtain the salvation which is in Messiah Yehoshua with age-abiding glory. It's kind of hard to be literally eternal, since there is a beginning to all things for us. What a hard thing to see here. This you know, that all those in Asia have turned away from me, among whom a couple names, Phygellus, Hermogenes, Hermogenes, the master grant mercy to the household of such and such, that I can't pronounce these, for he often refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chain. But when he arrived in Rome, he sought me out very zealously and found me. The master grant to him that he may find mercy from the master in that day. Having to watch so many people turn away, not an easy thing. O Jehovah Elohim of hosts, hear my prayer. Give ear, O Elohim of Jacob, O Elohim, behold our shield, and look upon the face of your anointed. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my Elohim than dwell in the tents of wickedness. All right, peace, take care, seek truth from above.